Okay. So this is from Beate. Heart chakra. About a month ago, I experienced Kundalini in the middle of the night. A few days prior, I felt my heart opening. However, I had to stop Kundalini as I felt my upper body, top of my arms, will explode. Obviously, there is a blockage. Since then, I have lots of instances when I go back to my avoidant state and I absolutely have no feelings of love towards anyone, even my daughter. It brings tears in my eyes and I am frustrated. In moments like that, I try to connect with my heart, but nothing is happening. It feels like there is no love inside of me. But then when I am back in my anxious side, it is easy for me to feel love and access those good feelings. Any idea how to work with that? How do I open my heart chakra or what is happening? Well, do you have something?
Well, I guess the thing that I think of first is that there's, like a sort of rejection of the, this coldness that comes up, and of course that's understandable. Being in a state of supposed, like lovelessness is very distressing, especially because that's the kind of thing that would really make the ego point to I'm a bad person. I don't even have love for my daughter in this moment. But what we want to get to is a place of real heart opening, which is to accept that which is happening because it's required. It's not any better or worse than the other side. It's just part of um, the process of what's happening. And the resistance to that is what's causing the distress. It's like this is a state I find myself in. But real openness, which can't be forced, by the way, you cannot choose to suddenly be open to something that you don't feel open to. But real openness comes when you allow all of yourself, which includes states of having no love for anyone, for being
Yeah.
the worst person you could possibly imagine, not in action, but in feeling or perceived, persona. It's allowing that will be the thing that takes you to a place of true openness.
Yeah. And I just want to say that even to share that, like most people it would be very difficult to say, even for
Yeah,
my own daughter. So
that's
that's
so
like
true.
that shows like an openness and actually a lot of
Yeah,
maturity.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good piece of evidence for yourself that you have enough openness, enough real love, which is just non-judgmental acceptance of what is, for yourself to
yeah,
be able to write those words. And there's empathy there for yourself. So, that's, yeah, it's just kind of evidence that there's um an open heart.
yeah. And I was just gonna talk about an analogy because this is an interesting topic of, I think it's happened so much in the spiritual community, what people think love is versus what it actually is. And
Yeah.
it is so, so much deeper than what people think, and therefore there's a confusion. Um, so the what most people think is that to be loving is to be kind, which is part of it. If you're kind and respectful, you could say I'm a loving person. But love goes so much deeper than that, and the only way I can describe it is using the analogy of your body is like, you could think of a container or a womb, and the body, if the body is absolutely loving, unconditionally loving, that's like a container. So the container is absolutely loving, but inside of the container, anything can happen because that's unconditional love. So if inside the container there's absolute hatred for humanity that wants to destroy people, right, and has no empathy, there's no feelings, that love holds the hatred inside like that and will not judge it. That's what love actually is. So this is the confusion that to be loving is to just to feel wonderful things all the time. That's a very shallow love. It's only nice to people who are nice, right? That's not love at all. And so what I was going to say is, though this is sometimes I'm like, is this like too much? But that's the point of this community to go deep. So that particular thing, so she says, I have absolutely no feeling of love towards anyone, even my daughter. So how you basically act as this container that allows anything is to explore in those moments because that's what's happening in that moment, right? It's already happening. So let's say that right now Beata is feeling that for the next, I don't know, 30 minutes, hour, it doesn't matter how long. That's already happening. So it's not like something that can be changed. So if it's here right now, it is very scary to do this because it's going to challenge many things. But what does that if that was a character in a movie or in a book, what would that character say? And again, it would be very scary. You don't have to say things because that might be too extreme to say something about your daughter. You don't have to do that. But what would it say exactly? And I can imagine, and I can do a little bit of it now. It would be something like, I don't feel love for anyone. Yeah, even my daughter, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. Who cares? Why should I feel something? So something like that, you would play with it. And your imagination, and probably it would be very scary if you actually went there, maybe you'd start like shaking a little bit because it's such a different experience because that's embodying a part of you that has no empathy, right? It's almost like a little bit of a psychopath where there's no feelings, it doesn't care about anyone. And so when you use your imagination, if you did this, you could do it for like literally 10 seconds if it's too scary and stop, but then you'd go back to it maybe whenever it happens. And then you'd see like how unfeeling is it? How cold is it? What if I say this? What if I say that? And that's you loving that part of you that can't love. That's what real love is. And it's this sort of practice that is the ultimate authenticity. There's nothing more authentic than that. But authenticity, true authenticity when it comes to stuff like this is extremely difficult. In the beginning, there's going to be a lot of fear and the judgment will probably be huge that you're a bad person, you're evil. A mother can only love a daughter at, every second of their life. Um, but then that if you explore that until you become comfortable with it, that's kind of scary for the ego. Once you become comfortable, when it arises, when you're very cold and you become comfortable, it means that you no longer judge that part. And even after, so like this is sort of the progress. The beginning will be scary, tons of resistance, but if you keep trying, eventually when you become familiar enough and it's comfortable, it will keep coming because now you would think, right? You would think, "Oh, it's going to be gone when I do that." But in reality, if it's been suppressed your whole life, once there's no resistance, it's almost like that part of you is now comfortable coming up to you. It's no longer going to be afraid of you. So it might actually arise more than ever. And then you just explore it more and more. And it really does become like acting, like you're becoming an actress. You're this loving mother, but then right now, what if I become this absolutely cold mother that doesn't, and explore that.
Yeah. And I'll just add that the answers that we are giving are probably likely to not sound like what you want to hear. And
Yeah.
that's a good thing to notice. It's like, is what's being said resonating but leading to discomfort? Like, I don't want to do that. That puts my um idea about myself. I believe that I am a good person, or I am this, or I am that, and what's being said here is not compatible with that. I'm not saying anything like dramatic has to happen, but it's a good thing to notice if there's resistance just arising, just tension, um, because that noticing will be very helpful as well.
Yeah. And there's another part of the question when she said, heart chakra, that was the title.
Mhm.
Um, I just wanted to say, I don't know, do you think we should, it's like there's so many things we could say, but just to maybe just say this is our first video that there are many things in the spiritual community that hopefully we will demystify, which means something that people think is very real and, oh, this is important, like the chakra system. Um, we don't think that that's very useful to think of having these chakras. It's almost like a mental thing. Oh, I have these energy points. And then she said, how do you open your heart chakra? Well, I've talked to her before. It's already happening. If you think about your heart opening, you could think of it as when you start crying every time. So it's like when you when you're so authentic with how much pain you're in and you're willing to say I'm in so much pain and then you feel emotional and you start crying, that is opening your heart. And so I think that even what I talked about before about embracing that cold part of you. In the moment, it probably is not going to lead to tears, but eventually, once you learn to love such a part of yourself that everybody would judge so harshly, if you actually explore that enough, that is you developing such a deep love for yourself that eventually it will lead to tears. Meaning, like, if you think about it, let's say that this part, right, the cold mother that doesn't feel anything, it's been rejected so much that that's a portion of you that is in suffering. And so if you learn to love that part of you and it's sort of like it has been accepted, that is a portion of you that can almost feel more. And then that can lead to tears, right? And so I think that's pretty much it. I think what you're already doing, Beata, is exactly your heart is opening and just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And I was just going to say about the point about terms like the chakra system or Kundalini manifestation. These things are the ego's special labels for things that are quite practical. And this becomes very evident the more you access your repressed emotions. The ego always wants to be special, wants to be different, wants to be chosen, wants to be on a different plane to other people, wants to be superior ultimately. Um, if these things are useful for you, obviously we're not telling you to stop using them, but I definitely invite you to ask the question, what does my ego get out of this? Why is there something special that I'm given by accessing these things? Um, Again, that might create some tension, resistance, like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He hasn't gone there or accessed it. That's fine. But I just invite you to always ask the question, is my ego who craves superiority or inferiority, um, is there something that's being gotten from spiritual terms?
Yeah, and just just to finish off, since there's two terms, so Kundalini, as far as I know, so what do people think that is? It's a very special spiritual energy in the spine that, arises and goes through all of the chakras. And then there's the shaking, right? The very famous uncontrollable shaking. That's happened to me. Kundalini is literally like when the brain is rewired, the body shakes because we have nerves all over the body. And so that's a great example of like you have this special spiritual energy, the snake, right, that goes up. That sounds so special to the ego. But then your nervous system is just making your body shake because your brain is being rewired, right, in meditation or something. That's how practical and simple. And then the ego can't use that to say, look how special I am. I've activated my Kundalini. It's like, no, you've just experienced a little bit of rewiring in the brain and your body just was shaking. That's it. And then the other thing with the heart chakra is literally I had this thought, which was the heart chakra opening, which is just your heart opening, is your the more that your heart is open, the more that you stop fighting with life and trying to find a solution when you're in pain. You stop trying to find a solution in that moment of pain and you go into the pain and then you start crying. That's literally it. You're just surrendering into the pain. But remember, this happens naturally. So if if you're fighting with life, that is part of the process too.